April 12, 1945. Berlin is already dying. The city shakes under constant Allied bombing. Streets are buried in rubble. The Third Reich is collapsing from the inside, and Adolf Hitler is hiding underground, surrounded by maps that no longer mean anything. Germany is losing the war. Everyone knows it. But in this version of history, something changes. Far across the Atlantic, in the deserts of New Mexico, American scientists are racing against time. The Manhattan Project was never meant for Japan. Its original enemy was Nazi Germany. The fear was simple and terrifying. If Hitler built the bomb first, the world would end under a black sun with a swastika at its center. Germany never got there. America did. And now a question that was once unthinkable moves from secret meetings to the desk of the President of the United States. What if the atomic bomb is used on Germany first? What if Berlin becomes the first city in history erased by nuclear fire? History books never show you how close this moment came. They tell you Germany surrendered, Japan was bombed, and the Cold War followed. But buried inside declassified memos, intercepted intelligence, and forgotten debates is a darker possibility, a decision that could have rewritten Europe forever. Before we go deeper, let me ask you something. If you're holding your phone right now or watching this on your screen, have you subscribed yet? If you haven't, do it now. Subscribe to World War II Dark Secrets. In early 1945, American leaders faced a brutal dilemma. Germany was collapsing, but not fast enough. Millions were still dying. Concentration camps were still operating. Entire cities were still fighting street by street. And U.S. planners feared something worse. What if Germany refused to surrender? What if the Nazis retreated into the Alps, turning southern Germany into a fortress? What if Hitler died and the SS continued the war without him? These were not fantasies. These were active concerns inside the Pentagon. Operation Downfall is often discussed in relation to Japan, but Europe had its own nightmare scenario. Allied commanders knew that storming Berlin would cost hundreds of thousands of lives. The Red Army was already tearing its way toward the city, but American leaders worried about what came next, a Soviet-dominated Europe. Stalin's armies were advancing fast. Every mile they took was a mile America would never control. The political future of the continent was being decided in real time by tanks and artillery. Then there was the bomb. By the spring of 1945, American scientists were confident the weapon worked. One bomb could destroy an entire city. One plane could do what thousands of bombers could not. Originally, the bomb was built because of Germany. Albert Einstein's letter to Roosevelt warned that Nazi scientists might be close to nuclear weapons. That fear unleashed unlimited American resources. Entire cities were built in secret. The U.S. spent billions without hesitation. This was the power of a nation at full industrial war. Now, the weapon was real, and Germany was still alive. Inside the White House and the War Department, a forbidden conversation began. If the bomb is ready before Germany surrenders, should we use it? Supporters argued this: one atomic strike on Berlin or Hamburg could force immediate surrender. It would save Allied lives. It would end the war in Europe instantly. And it would also demonstrate American power to the Soviet Union in the most undeniable way possible. Opponents warned of consequences no one could predict. Europe was not Japan. Berlin was surrounded by Allied and Soviet forces. Fallout could kill friendly troops. A nuclear strike in the heart of Europe would poison the continent America was trying to rebuild. But the strongest argument was political. If the United States ended the war alone with one bomb, the post-war balance of power would shift dramatically. No divided Germany, no Iron Curtain, no Eastern Bloc as we know it. In this alternate path, the decision is made. The test in New Mexico succeeds earlier. The bomb is ready by late March 1945. Germany does not surrender fast enough. Hitler is still alive. Berlin still fights. President Truman authorizes the strike. The target is Berlin. The goal is absolute shock. On the morning of April 25, 1945, a single American bomber appears high above the city. Air raid sirens scream, but Berlin has seen thousands of bombers before. No one expects what comes next. The blast detonates over the city center. In one blinding flash, Berlin ceases to exist as a functioning capital. The blast flattens miles of buildings instantly. Government districts vanish. Hitler's bunker collapses or seals itself forever. Firestorms consume what remains. Tens of thousands die in seconds. Many more will die slowly. The world changes in one moment. German command structure collapses immediately. Communication lines are gone. Senior Nazi leaders are either dead or unreachable. The psychological impact is worse than the physical destruction. Germany has no answer to this weapon. Within days, remaining German forces surrender unconditionally to the United States and its allies, not to the Soviets, to America. The war in Europe ends not with tanks in Berlin, but with nuclear fire. Now the consequences begin. The Soviet Union is shocked. Stalin is furious. He was not warned. He did not approve. The Red Army is robbed of its symbolic victory. The political leverage he expected from capturing Berlin evaporates overnight. America controls the end of the war. Germany is occupied primarily by Western Allied forces. There is no East Germany, no Berlin Wall, no divided city standing as a scar for decades. Instead, there is a radioactive crater where Berlin once stood. The moral weight is enormous. Europe has just witnessed a weapon that makes all previous warfare meaningless. The United States is now something entirely new. Not just a victor, a nuclear empire. The Cold War does not begin the same way. The Soviet Union accelerates its nuclear program in panic, not competition. Espionage intensifies immediately. Trust between allies collapses faster than it did in our timeline. But America holds the advantage. It has used the bomb. It has proven it will use it. And the message is clear. The world wakes up to a silence no one understands. Radio signals from Berlin vanish. No speeches, no proclamations, no final orders from Hitler. Just fragments, static, panic, rumors spreading faster than facts. Within hours, Allied intelligence confirms it. Berlin is gone. Not captured, not occupied, erased. American commanders on the ground are stunned. Even those briefed on the weapon were not prepared for what it actually did. Soldiers miles away feel the shockwave. A strange wind carries dust and ash across the countryside. The war they trained for no longer exists. For the German people, the psychological collapse is total. For years, Nazi propaganda promised miracle weapons, secret machines, wonder arms that would turn defeat into victory. Now, the enemy has revealed a weapon beyond imagination. One bomb, one plane, one city destroyed. The myth of the Thousand-Year Reich dies in a single morning. Across Germany, local commanders make their own decisions. Units surrender without orders. SS officers flee or kill themselves. Some try to keep fighting, but they are isolated and hunted. There is no central authority left to fear. Hitler's fate is never fully confirmed. The bunker is believed destroyed or sealed under collapsed earth. No body is recovered. No dramatic suicide scene, just absence. In this timeline, Hitler does not become a Cold War rumor. He becomes a nuclear ghost. The surrender that follows is fast and unconditional. German representatives rush to American lines, not Soviet ones. They want protection, they want mercy, and above all, they want distance from the weapon that destroyed their capital. The United States accepts the surrender, and in doing so, claims ownership of the end of the war in Europe. The Soviet reaction is immediate and hostile. Stalin had been promised Berlin. His armies had bled for it. Now there is nothing left to capture. No victory parade, no symbolic conquest, just a radioactive ruin controlled by American airspace. Behind closed doors, Soviet leadership views the strike as a threat directed as much at them as at Germany. This was not just about ending the war. This was a warning. Diplomatic language collapses, accusations fly. American officials argue the strike saved millions of lives and prevented a prolonged ground battle. Soviet officials respond that America has introduced a weapon that makes alliances meaningless. Trust, already fragile, shatters. Occupation zones are redrawn under American pressure. With Germany surrendered primarily to Western forces, the Red Army halts its advance earlier than expected. Eastern Europe becomes a tense gray zone rather than a solid Soviet bloc. Poland, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, none are fully secured by Moscow. America now has leverage it never had before, and it uses it. War crimes trials proceed differently. With Berlin destroyed, many records are lost forever. Some Nazi leaders escape identification. Others are captured quickly, broken by fear rather than ideology. The Nuremberg trials still happen, but the tone is darker. Prosecutors reference Berlin constantly, not as a crime, but as a consequence, a demonstration of what modern war has become. The moral debate explodes worldwide. Newspapers ask the question no one can avoid. Was it necessary? Europe is horrified not only by the destruction, but where it happened. This was not an enemy island thousands of miles away. This was the heart of Europe, a city of history, culture, and civilians reduced to ash. Anti-American sentiment rises in unexpected places. Allies who cheered liberation now fear their liberator. At the same time, no one challenges American power directly, because no one can. The United States occupies Germany with overwhelming authority. Reconstruction begins, but Berlin is excluded. It becomes a forbidden zone. Scientists study it, soldiers patrol its edges, politicians avoid it. The ruins stand as a permanent warning. Germany is rebuilt without its capital. A new administrative center rises in Frankfurt. A new political identity forms under American supervision. Without division, Germany becomes a Western-aligned powerhouse faster than anyone expected. And the Soviet Union watches this happen in real time. Moscow accelerates everything. Nuclear research becomes the highest priority in the Soviet system. Espionage networks are expanded aggressively. Scientists are forced to work under impossible pressure. Failure is not an option. The arms race begins earlier, more dangerously. Now the question shifts east. Japan is still fighting. When news of Berlin reaches Tokyo, the reaction is disbelief, then terror. Japanese leaders understand something instantly that Germany never did. If America was willing to destroy a European capital, Japan is not safe. Inside the Japanese Supreme War Council, debates intensify. Some argue surrender is now inevitable. Others insist the weapon was only used because Germany was already defeated and surrounded. They gamble. They believe America will not use it again. They are wrong. But the decision-making process is altered. Hiroshima and Nagasaki are now not just about ending the Pacific War. They are about reinforcing a precedent already set. A world where nuclear weapons are not theoretical, they are policy. This is where the timeline bends hardest, because after Berlin, the atomic bomb is no longer shocking, it is expected. Tokyo does not sleep after Berlin. Messages arrive in fragments. Diplomatic cables, intercepted broadcasts, whispered confirmations from neutral nations. The same word appears again and again. Berlin is gone. For Japanese leadership, this is not just news, it is a mirror. If America erased the capital of a European superpower, then Japan's cities are no longer bargaining chips, they are targets. Inside the imperial palace, the mood turns cold and desperate. The atomic bomb is no longer a rumor. It is no longer an American bluff. It has been used in the center of the Western world, against a white, industrial, Christian nation, against a former great power. That detail matters. Some Japanese leaders had believed the weapon would never be used on them first, that America would hesitate, that moral limits still existed. Berlin proves those limits are gone. The Supreme War Council splits harder than ever. The peace faction argues surrender must happen now before Japan suffers the same fate. They point to Germany's instant collapse. One bomb, one city. The war ended in days. The military faction pushes back. They argue Germany was already surrounded and defeated. Japan, they say, still has an army, still has honor, still has the ability to inflict casualties so severe that America will negotiate. They cling to one final hope, that America will not repeat Berlin, that the world will not tolerate a second nuclear city. But American strategy has changed. After Berlin, the atomic bomb is no longer just a war-ending weapon. It is a geopolitical message. The United States has crossed a line, and it understands something crucial. Fear works. In Washington, planners reassess everything. Some argue that Japan may now surrender without a strike. Others insist that hesitation would weaken the message already sent to the Soviet Union. If America stops now, Berlin becomes an exception. If America strikes again, Berlin becomes doctrine. The decision is made with brutal clarity. Japan must see the same fire. The difference is timing. In this altered timeline, the bomb is ready earlier. Targets have been discussed longer. Intelligence is sharper. The psychological groundwork has already been laid. On August 3, 1945, American bombers move into position. There is no warning demonstration. Berlin was the demonstration. Hiroshima is chosen. When the bomb detonates, the world reacts differently than it did in our history. Shock still exists, but disbelief does not. Everyone understands what has happened immediately. This is Berlin again. The Japanese government reels. Emergency meetings last for hours. Some leaders still resist. They argue one city is not enough, that America cannot destroy Japan completely. Then Nagasaki follows, and the argument dies. Japan surrenders faster than in our timeline, not because of the bombs alone, but because the pattern is undeniable. America is willing to erase capitals, cultural centers, and civilian populations to end wars on its terms. There is no illusion left. The war ends. But the world that emerges is far more afraid than the one we know. America stands alone at the top of history. It has ended 2 wars with the same weapon. It has done so on 2 continents. It has demonstrated a level of industrial, scientific, and military dominance no empire has ever achieved. The occupation of Japan is even more submissive. Resistance is minimal. The emperor's role is reshaped quickly under American authority. Nuclear fear becomes part of Japanese national identity from day one. And the Soviet Union? The Soviet Union is terrified. Stalin now knows something devastating. America does not need ground forces to decide the fate of nations. It does not need allies to end wars, and it is willing to act without warning. The Cold War begins not as a rivalry, but as a survival race. Soviet nuclear development becomes ruthless. Scientists work under constant threat. Espionage inside the United States intensifies immediately. Every secret is hunted, every weakness exploited. But America is still years ahead, and it knows it. Military doctrine worldwide shifts. Conventional warfare begins to feel obsolete. Large armies become liabilities. Cities become hostages. Europe rebuilds under a permanent nuclear shadow. Berlin remains untouched, frozen in time, a dead zone at the center of the continent. Children grow up knowing its name not as a capital, but as a warning. American power becomes unquestionable, but also deeply resented. Allies rely on it. Enemies fear it. Neutral nations scramble to choose sides. Morality debates never end. Was it right? Was it necessary? Or did America unleash something it could never control? The war is over, but peace never truly arrives. In this world, the atomic bomb is not remembered as a shocking finale. It is remembered as a beginning. Berlin was first. Hiroshima was confirmation. Nagasaki was closure. Together, they form a doctrine. By 1946, the planet understands a single truth. The United States has rewritten the rules of power. Wars are no longer decided by who has the biggest army, the longest supply lines, or the strongest ideology. They are decided by who controls the atom. Europe rebuilds under an unspoken fear. Cities are redesigned with evacuation plans in mind. Governments relocate archives, leaders, and command centers far from population hubs. Civil defense becomes as normal as schools and hospitals. Berlin remains untouched. No reconstruction, no memorials, just a sealed, irradiated scar in the center of Germany. American forces patrol its perimeter, scientists monitor it, politicians reference it in speeches without ever visiting. It becomes the most powerful symbol on Earth. Germany, unified and fully Western-aligned, rises fast. Without division, without a wall, without Soviet occupation, it becomes America's strongest partner in Europe. Its economy surges, its military is restrained but technologically advanced, and it never forgets who destroyed its capital. Gratitude and fear exist side by side. The Soviet Union adapts in darker ways. Stalin dies with a single obsession unfinished. His successors inherit a system built on paranoia. The nuclear race consumes everything. Food shortages worsen, living standards collapse further, but bombs are built at any cost. Espionage becomes constant. The Cold War is not fought with speeches and proxy wars at first. It is fought with secrets, betrayals, and stolen equations. Because everyone knows what happens if diplomacy fails. There is no Korean War in this timeline. There is no Vietnam as we know it. Direct confrontation feels too dangerous too early. Instead, the world freezes into rigid blocks faster than in our history. Borders harden, neutrality becomes rare, nuclear umbrellas define alliances. America's dominance is absolute, but unstable. The moral burden of Berlin never fades. Every use of American power is questioned through that lens. Protests erupt earlier. Intellectuals argue that America saved millions or damned the future. Both arguments are true. By the 1960s, nuclear arsenals are larger than ever, developed sooner, faster, and with less restraint. The first nuclear scare happens earlier too, a misread radar signal, a misunderstood exercise. The world comes closer to annihilation decades ahead of schedule. But it survives, barely, because everyone remembers Berlin. That memory restrains just as much as it threatens. In this world, the atomic bomb does not end war forever, but it does end innocence forever. Humanity crosses the line earlier without the illusion that it will never happen again. The United States remains the most powerful nation on Earth, not just because of its weapons, but because it was the first to prove it would use them. That reputation never leaves. History asks a final question. Did bombing Germany first prevent something worse, or did it teach the world the fastest way to end everything? There is no clear answer, only consequences. This is the world that could have been, and the shadow it would have cast would be longer, darker, and far harder to escape.